We're live. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I will call the meeting to order. Beaumont City Council regular council meeting for Tuesday, June 14th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in council chambers. I'll begin our meeting like I usually do with our land acknowledgement, which is, we're pleased to be here today on traditional territory of Treaty 6 and the Métis homeland. We acknowledge all those who share a deep connection with this land. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and culture of all of Canada's First Peoples, whether they be a First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. We are all treaty people. The peace treaties bind us all. Which is, we're pleased to be here today on traditional territory of Treaty 6 and the Métis homeland. We acknowledge all those. Is that how I sound? Are we okay to go, or I have to redo that, do I? Okay, great. We have two proclamations this evening. Longest Day of Smiles, June 19, 2022. Whereas Operation Smile Canada announced June 19, 2022 as the longest day of smiles to raise both funds and awareness. And whereas Operation Smile is a global medical charity help improving the health of lives and children in more than 60 countries. They provided more than 300,000 children and young adults, both with cleft lip, cleft palate, other facial differences with free life-changing surgical procedures and dental care. They train doctors and local medical professionals, donate medical equipment and supplies, provide year-round medical treatments, the network of comprehensive care centers. And whereas every 3 minutes a child is born with a cleft lip, a cleft palate, or both, and whereas the longest day of smiles will unite Canadians across the nation to raise funds, awareness, and to share smiles with each other and for children born with cleft conditions. Whereas on June 19, 2022, we acknowledge residents of Beaumont to visit longestdayofsmiles.ca to learn more. Now, therefore, be resolved that I, Mayor Bill Daneluik, do hereby proclaim June 19, 2022 as longest day of smiles in the City of Beaumont, dated April 20th, 2022. Excuse me. National Indigenous Peoples Day, June 21, 2022. Whereas Beaumont was settled and built upon the traditional lands and territories of the First Nations peoples, the homeland of the Métis, and as part of the greater Edmonton area, the region is a place where Inuit and people of the North can come to receive services and connect with family, friends, and neighbors. And whereas every summer solstice is a sacred time for Indigenous peoples and communities across Canada to celebrate in ceremony, culture, tradition, and teachings. It marks a time for all people living in Canada to acknowledge the many contributions Indigenous peoples have made and continue to make through knowledge, law, labor, spirituality, technology, science, philosophy, art, health, and wellness. And whereas National Indigenous Peoples Day is an opportunity to acknowledge the trauma that was caused by the attempts to assimilate and colonize original peoples of this land, while also recognizing the resilience and strength of Indigenous peoples to continue connecting with their culture and heritage despite our dark shared history and the systematic racism that still exists today. And whereas the City of Beaumont is committed to, as allies, to assist Indigenous peoples in reclaiming their culture and traditions while making room for Indigenous voices within our structures and at our decision-making tables to ensure equity and equality for Indigenous peoples going forward. Now, therefore, be resolved that I, Mayor Bill Daneluik, do hereby proclaim June 21st, 2022 as National Indigenous Peoples Day in the City of Beaumont, Alberta, dated 14th of June, 2022. Next on the agenda is to adopt the agenda. Administration. Any changes to the agenda this evening, please? Ms. Winter.
Thank you, Mayor. Administration has one proposed change to the agenda this evening, in addition to item 12B, closed session, and that will be an Innovation Park update. Thank you.
Thank you. Member of Council willing to move the adoption of the agenda as amended. What's this on the screen? Councillor McCook. Kat, you have the floor.
I move that the June 14th, 2022 council meeting agenda be adopted with the following change. Add item 12B, Innovation Park update, closed session pursuant to FOIP session 24 and 25 section.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I will call for the council to vote. Please vote accordingly. And that carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. Also making I'll let Council this evening know that Councilor McCough Swain was detained, not able to attend this evening's meeting, but he does send his regrets And we look forward to seeing him at the next council meeting. Next on the agenda is the open forum. Administration, anybody sign up for open forum this evening? Ms. Winter?
Thank you, Mayor. We do not have any registrations for this evening.
Thank you very much. Item 4, consent agenda. I have that here with me now. It is proposed that the 5A regular council meeting of May 24, 2022, 5B special council meeting of May 31st, 2022, 7A on the agenda, violence threat risk assessment protocol agreement renewal, 8C, council code of conduct bylaw 1011-22, first, second, and third reading, and 8D, fees and charges bylaw amendment 1019-22, first, second, and third reading, be passed on the consent agenda. Is there a discussion? Member of council willing to make the motion? Councillor Barnhart?
Yes, Mayor, I'd be pleased to make that motion. Do I have to read all of that?
Yep.
Uh,
Only Renee has to read all of it. You can just
I can
paraphrase.
shorten that a little.
You can shorten it.
That the following agenda items be approved without debate. That's item 5A, 5B, 7A, 8C, and 8D.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, I'll ask council to vote accordingly on the motion. And that will carry unanimously. Thank you, council. All right, next on our agenda are registered presentations, which I believe we have one this evening. 6A on the agenda, Leduc Regional Housing Foundation 2021 Annual Report. Would our guest speaker please come to the table, introduce yourself, and then you have, I believe, you have 10 minutes to make your presentation.
Hello, my name is Margaret Paved, and I'd like to thank you for welcoming me after a request to attend the council meeting. I was hired in October of 2020, so I was hired during COVID, so I didn't get the opportunity to go meet people. So now that we're in a situation where it's a great opportunity for me to do that. Municipalities that we work with. And give a little bit of an update on the annual report. I'm sure. Is your mic on? I'm not sure.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry.
I want to make sure everyone can hear you.
There we go. So what we have here is the 2021 annual report, and you can hear me okay now? Yeah. okay,
Yes,
perfect.
thanks.
And I'm not going to go through the details of it, but what I'm going to do is just kind of give some quick highlights of it and talk to it and just give a little bit of the challenges that we're facing and the successes that we're having and share kind of a little bit about what we are about and what's happening and open up for any questions that you might have. A lot of people aren't that familiar with the Leduc Regional Housing Foundation, but we've actually been in operation since 1963. And we are actually the provider of housing solutions in the Leduc region. And that's all 7 municipalities. And we have 19 communities in those 7 municipalities. Sometimes that surprises people. We have 21 buildings, which includes our central services office and our maintenance office. And then we have 19 communities that range from quite small to quite large, actually. 5 housing solutions that we offer. We have 2 lodges, which is supportive living, one in Warburg and one in Leduc. And then we have 8 senior self-contained buildings. One of those is actually here in Beaumont. We also have 8 affordable housing projects. And that's, and then 1 community housing, which is in Leduc, which is for family. And then we have a rent assistance program. So we offer all 5 of those different options for people that are in need of housing. We have an annual report, annual operating budget of about $11,500,000. We have 9 board members. 7 or 8 of those board members are councillors from the 7 municipalities. The Leduc County has 2, and we have 1 member at large. We run 2 sets of financials. And this is a bit of a surprise for a lot of people too, because we're running 2 businesses. One business is actually operating government-owned buildings for the Alberta government, and one is our own Leduc Regional Housing Foundation-owned buildings. Our funding for all of the government-owned buildings comes from the Alberta Seniors Government, comes through LAP grants. It comes through, special programs like 30% rent geared to income. And then if we run into a deficit in those situations, the Alberta government picks that up. Where we don't have any funding is our affordable housing. How we manage our affordable housing is try to keep our rent as low as we possibly can and maintaining it like an independent business. Our rents run anywhere from 18 to 28% below market. So we also have an affordable housing here, project here in Beaumont. So we have two of our communities here. One's a senior self-contained, one's an affordable housing. We have right now to date huge wait lists. We have very serious need for housing. And I know that's not news to anyone anymore. That's on all three government platforms. Just to put it in perspective, we have 67 people on our wait list for rent assistance. We have 102 people on our wait list for 1 bedrooms and 30 people on our wait list for 2 or more bedrooms. In the Beaumont area, we have 15 on the wait list for a Beauregard Manor. Beauregard Manor only has 12 units and there's 15 people on the waiting list. We have 14 people on the wait list for Villa Beauregard, and we have 6 people on the wait list for rent assistance. So you can see the demand is there. So what we've been doing is working hard since 2021. We got together and did a really good strategic proposal or strategic plan for 5 years, from 2021 to 2025. We identified 4 pillars or 4 key indicators that we wanted to work on. One is awareness and education. We discovered, and I was new to the region. I came in from Calgary and my predecessor was here for 29 years and did a marvelous job. In Nancy Lang, many people are very familiar with her. And then I came in new to the area and got to take on, her portfolio and work with Leduc Regional Housing Foundation. But one of the things I noticed very quickly is we don't have our names on our buildings. And as I was learning, just becoming familiar, people and talking to people, I realized we're well known with the social service providers. We're known with our councils, but we're not known in the public. So that's one of our key strategies is to really work on awareness and education. One of the reasons I'm here in front of you today. I get to get a little bit of a check mark for that action plan. Partnerships and collaboration is the other thing. We have a lot of partners, but we haven't even identified our partners. We're just so used to working with them. Like FCSS is here. We work very closely with them. We have many partners. So what we want to do is we want to continue to develop the partners that we already have, but acknowledge them. And we also want to start working on the collaboration piece. How can we help each other in our partnerships? Now we have to work internally and externally. We discovered that a lot of people that live within our buildings aren't even aware of the other buildings that we operate or other communities. Just last Christmas, what we did is we had the seniors in the lodges actually knit a whole bunch of knits and mitts and toques and scarves and gave them to all the children in our family housing. So starting to build those relationships, collaborations, and partnerships. The third thing that we want to work on is infrastructure, maintaining what we already have and looking for opportunity to develop and grow. I just talked about our wait list. We know that we have a need, but how are we going to do that? And that, of course, is our fourth pillar, and that's the financial one. We have been relying solely on the government funding, and we recognize we have to do more than that. And that's a big undertaking, and it's new for us. So we're starting to put together some plans and potentially having one really big fundraiser annually. That's one thing to do, start looking at grants. And so we'll be sharing more of this information as we go along and implementing these action plans. So that's just a quick snapshot of what we do and what we offer. And you can see by the second page here, I've given a different statistics that actually reflect that we have here, but we're a very healthy organization and we offer such great services. And we want to make sure that we're doing what we can for everyone in our community. And we've changed our vision, mission, and values to actually include that. And we're hoping that with help from our municipal people and our councillors and our communities, that we can continue to grow and be able to help everyone that's in need of housing, because it's growing and it's desperate. So that's quick. Anyone has a question for me? And one more point that I always like to make. We are all one crisis away from having to live in one of our homes. And I think people forget that. Sometimes we think, oh, that's them over there. It's not them over there. I can share an example of somebody that lived here in the Beaumont community, doing very, very well, ended up with a child with cancer that didn't have medication to support, that was supported by the drug plans. They lost everything, keeping that child alive, and ended up divorced, living in our house, in our housing. It could be any of us. So I always like to remind people, it's not them over there. It could be anyone. Any questions for me?
Thank you for your presentation. I do have a couple of councillors with some questions, so I'll go to them first, and I've got a question myself at the end. I'll hold my back. So first I've got Councillor Tessier, followed by Councillor McCook, followed by Councillor Miller. So Renee, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for the presentation and all that you do. It is important work. And one thing that I heard personally on the campaign trail was it's tough to find affordable housing for seniors, right? Especially Beauregard, like you said, is very small, and it's been here as long as I can remember. And we do have newer complexes going up for, let's say, 55 plus that I would say are mid to high range affordability.
Correct.
So we understand there's a need. Now, how do we, I guess, serve that need, and where does that start? And is there a list of this community's up next for a building, or how that looks like?
So that's an excellent question. I'm literally writing the business plan right now. He's working on it today and tomorrow to submit to our board next week. We have highlighted the potential for a development here in Beaumont as number 2 on our list. And the number 1 is the Plainview development that's been there for many, many years. So this is a new one, and Beaumont's right up there. And the reason it's up there is because it's unique. We own the senior self-contained building here, complex here in Beaumont. Normally, we don't own the senior self-contained. Normally, that's government owned. So we own that property. We own all that property with affordable housing and the senior self-contained. So we have a lot more opportunity because it's our asset. And so I've been meeting with some of the FCSS and with Emily Sangster to talk about some ideas. This is just right now, just a concept, it's a seed, but absolutely, this is something we're exploring right now.
That's great. Yeah, you got to start somewhere. It takes
right.
time. So
Yeah.
Appreciate all you do. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McCook, Kat, you have the floor.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. As you're very aware, affordable and subsidized housing is very much needed in our community. So I appreciate you coming out and really highlighting that as well. I noticed that the supplemental rent is the largest area served. Would that be because of a lack of additional housing, or it's the quickest way to kind of assist people? Would you say some of the other categories would be larger if there were assets to serve those areas?
So the nice part about that is it's a different way of offering a solution. So we supplement the individual, and they can live wherever they want to live. They can choose, and they can have up to $450 a month go towards the rent. And so that helps them make that decision. So you could actually have somebody that lives within one of our buildings still eligible for that. And so their rent's even lower. However, they could also go in and live in one of the, as we refer to as the mid to the higher, and choose to have the 450. And so there's very specific criteria that we have to follow. It's a government program. We actually supplement $1.1 million a year annually for rent supplement at this time. And that is one of our strategies also, is to lobby for more there, because there's such a high need. As I said, 67 more applications that are eligible that we just don't have funds for.
For sure. Perfect. Thank you. And then where do most of your referrals come from? Is it mostly through FCSS and the municipalities, or
Everywhere.
Agencies everywhere?
Everywhere. All the agencies, we all have that relationship already built in our communities. We get them from every word of mouth, but we also want to make sure that we're out there more and being more visible.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. And then one last question.
Please.
How do you assist, or are you guys able to assist people in regards to more accessible housing?
Yeah, that's actually something else that's on our radar, because we don't have a property with an elevator in affordable housing. We have applied for the Rapid Housing Initiative. That was some federal funding. We weren't successful. At the same time, we haven't lost hope. And one of that actually has an elevator in it, and that's part of the sell there. So the federal government is talking about more funds coming for the rapid housing. So we have been in touch with CMHC to see, do we come again and do another application? We don't want to waste our time doing applications that we're not going to get. We want to make sure that it's worthy, right? And so that's what we're in the process of talking to CMHC, just to see, is it going to end up going to the bigger centers? Because that's what we've been told, but we'll see. And if there's an opportunity, we'll put that in, and that's going to be an elevator, and that's for Gates in Leduc. And then so you would have an elevator that's attached to existing building of 21 units. or no, 18 units, and then add another 23 on there. So then you would be able to have accessible housing for a lot more clients.
Okay. And would you say that that's currently a gap in service right now? Like you have people who,
Absolutely.
yeah, for sure. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Miller, Ashley, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out and presenting this to us. I was just going to ask about capital grants. You mentioned that you haven't went after those before, and what is the timeline and probability of getting the capital grants, and how much, I guess, surplus are we talking?
Well, and that's just it. They're very specific grants. You never know where they're going to come out, and the timelines are specific to every grant. Now, this is something new to us because we haven't done it. So we have to start doing the research to find out even what grants are available. So this is brand new and it's on our radar. So I can't even begin to answer any of that, which I wish I could. But we really do need to start looking that way, because we just can't continue to rely on government funding when it comes available.
Right. And then my second question is the buildings. Is it always a new build that you're looking for? Do you occupy buildings that are up for lease and move into those, or how does that actually work?
Well, in any option would be fantastic. Our biggest challenge is not having the capital funding. So I've talked about the two sets of books. The affordable housing side, we've exhausted all of our funds to keep our rents as low as possible. Now, it fascinates me because if we had a surplus, we obviously, we could make a surplus, we just increase everybody's rent, but then all of a sudden we're not affordable housing. And so it's kind of a challenge, right? The difference is the supportive living program, we have the municipal requisition, which you're all familiar with. And so we do have a little bit of money there for redevelopment, but we don't have any money for affordable housing redevelopment.
Right.
So that's the challenge. But we have land, which is fantastic because that's a big thing to actually acquire. But we have land where we could develop it to get that capital started, because we're very good at the operational piece. Right? We just need that capital.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Councillor Barnhart, Kathy, you have the floor.
I didn't want to go before your question, but I think if I let you go to your question, then I will get a chance
Go right ahead.
to say thank you, because being on the board, I can ask questions all the time. So and I do. She's used to that. So I won't ask any questions tonight. I just want to publicly thank you. What your staff and you did during COVID was remarkable.
We were very successful. Yes.
I had some sleepless nights wondering how that was going to go, and I imagine you must have had some as well. I know you did. But you did very well, and your staff really came through quite a storm to be able to achieve that. So I just want to say publicly thank you for all that you do. 19 buildings, or 19 communities. It's a remarkably big job, and I just think you did phenomenally well. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Councillor Barnhart.
Thanks, Kathy. Just one quick question. You mentioned your presentation primarily relying on government funding in past years. Now you're looking at changing that model. What are your plans at this point that you can talk about regarding future fundraising? I'm assuming on the non-governmental private side of the such as fundraisers of various types. Have you gone down that path very far?
And that's just where we're starting to explore. We're just starting to, what we're wanting to do is develop a good video with testaments from our own clients and our own residents to utilize for publicity, and to also our goal is to next spring is to have like a breakfast, a gala breakfast, to invite, many people to it and to show that kind of a video and ask for donations. That's one of the things that we're in the process of getting started. And as I said, and hopefully have that annually. And so then we can, refer to that, because everybody, we're all in need of funds. All of the social services groups are out there, and we don't want to overtax our communities. So we want to, have one really good fundraiser, and then the rest we want to start looking at partnerships. And one of the partnerships that we're looking at right now is, I'm hearing that there's a need in Thorsby. There's some businesses out there, and they have trouble with affordable housing. So let's go and have a little talk to the companies out there and say, if this is real, what can you put forward? We'll manage it for you and take care of it. So some of those kind of conversations. So this is all just in the starting stages. Yep.
Yeah, thank you. More of when we started talking about funding there, it tweaked me something. One thing I had wondered, and I'm not sure, is around the ability of the foundation to take on debt and borrow money. Is there that ability to do that, and you can borrow against future revenues? And to what extent are you going to be able to leverage that as you look to build the next big project? I assume there's probably not enough room to build the next big project based upon that, but what does that look like?
And we do have that ability, and we also have access to good interest rates through, in many situations, through our municipalities, but also through CMHC. We just have to be very cautious, because as soon as you have to be able to work the pro formas to ensure that you're maintaining that affordability piece. And that's the biggest challenge. It's that balance. Getting the funding, we have what, $35 million in assets. We have good assets. We don't have debt at the moment, very little. We have a few Leduc County and one to the city of Leduc, but we do not have a significant debt there. So there is an opportunity. It's just managing it well. Yeah. And making sure that, and so the next, the Plainview redevelopment, that's the potential right there, is to get some more, to get financing for that piece with some government subsidy there. That's what we're looking at. The rest of the projects we're going to have to do on our own. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you, Steve. Seeing no further questions, I'll thank you for your presentation this evening. We normally go about 10 minutes and some question time, but a bit longer than usual, but been in it for a couple of years. So we're trying to be a little more latitude wise with some important topics like regional housing. So we do appreciate your coming this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We do a motion to accept the report, or we just take the presentation? Ms. Winter, just take it as? Yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you. Next on our agenda this evening is into 7 business items, and first A was on consent. So 7B, Councillor Tessier, motion following notice RV Sani Station. So we'll move to that, and we have a hard stop at 6:45 for a closed session. So we'll try and get through, some motion, Councillor Tessier. I'm sure we'll be able to get it done in the next few minutes, but if we need to stop it all, just so you know that, okay? And before we begin on the notice of the motion, council point of order in the sense that we have 6 council this evening instead of 7. So in the event of a tie vote, the motion is defeated. So I'm not suggesting it's going to be that way, but just so you know, that's the rules we fall under on voting, having 6 people instead of 7 in a session. So Councillor Tessier, would you care to move your motion?
Do I have to move it again, or can I just speak to it?
Ms. Winter?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Councillor Tessier. So this would be when you actually move your motion and you'll actually say your whole motion versus the last meeting you gave notice.
Perfect, thank you. So I'll move that prior to the September 13th, 2022 council meeting, administration prepare a report on the feasibility of constructing an RV Sani Station in Beaumont and include potential costs, funding available, potential locations, and any other relevant information.
Thank you, Councillor. Please speak to your motion.
So I'll just talk a little bit about the wording in there. Just even when it comes to any other relevant information, whether that process looks like we're going to be charging user fees. This is something that's come up since, well, when I was about 10 years old and we had my grandparents' motorhome, and still back then we're talking about it to this date. So I'm not going to age myself too much here. But during the campaign, just walking around an abundance of kilometers and talking to people, we've all lived here a long time. We've seen numerous RVs and trailers and motorhomes around our city, and a city of almost 22,000 people. It's almost something that is a need because smaller towns and other cities already have these services. So a little data behind it from our master plans, our places in play final plan that came out December 13th of 2019 under the move and expand RV campground. It talks about an assessment and need for a new campground facility, which would be a long-term goal, which they say as a long-term goal would be more than 5 years. And then the second of that would be install an RV dump station, which would be a medium timeline, which is 2 to 5 years. So we're kind of right at that mark, which would lead us to a good spot to implementing something like that's been discussed for a long time. I'll leave it at that, Mayor, and open up for discussion. And again, it's a report, so it's good to know, where would the city want to put it and what is this cost?
Okay,
Thanks, Mayor.
thank you, Councillor. Questions from council for the motion before us this evening? See no questions? Okay. Any implications, administration, in terms of that date? I know that date is going to be our discussion regarding future possible capital projects for next year's 2023 budget. Mr. Blanco, do you have any comments on the motion? Or Ms. Bourget, you want to speak first to that? I see your light on. Well, that's Curtis's light. Sorry, pardon me. Mr. Blanco.
Thank you to the mayor. So just to update, administration has commenced work on the roll forward compilation and validation of the projects within the city's capital plan in anticipation of that one milestone in the next few months being the capital engagement report on the 13th. As the work requested in the motion aligns with the work being performed as part of this report, administration would recommend that this be provided at that September 13th date. And that would be in order to give council a more fulsome view on how these projects may be incorporated into the capital plan rather than on an ad hoc or one-off basis.
Thank you. Councillor, do you wish to comment on Mr. Blanco's comment? I can assist you possibly. No, you're good the way you are. Okay. I think what Mr. Blanco was suggesting is that this report could be included on September 13th as part of the capital process we talked about earlier this year. So we could pass the motion as it is, but I would ask you to consider maybe having your motion simply amended to be included in the September 13th meeting day. The report will be as is. It'll be included on that day as opposed to beforehand. If you're not comfortable with that, we'll vote on the motion as it is. It just gives administration a little more latitude to get it done for the 13th. Would you have any concerns with? Would you have be objected to have it on the 13th? Or would you prefer it before the 13th?
Just checking the calendar here. So our last meeting is the 13th of July, right?
No, our last meeting is July 26th, and we come back on August the 23rd. Hang on. September 13th, right. Councillor Tessier, you have the floor.
I'm open to thoughts on the date or timeline. It's if we're going to be sitting there talking about capital projects, as long as the report is as in depth as the motion says, I would be okay with it.
Okay. So having said that, Mr. Blanco, my interpretation of your comments is that Councillor Tessier, if he were to amend his motion to say for the September 13th, 2022 meeting, his request will be incorporated in that meeting as he's gotten his motion. Can you declare, give him a comfort zone with that, if you could, please?
I'll let Ms. Bourget speak to how the motion will be addressed, but in terms of the motion itself, it's asking for a report. So that would be a separate report from the capital report that would then include the ask in the motion.
Okay, thank you.
And just from what I understand too, in that process, if I'm correct, is if you want certain capital projects to be on that date, you have to do what we're doing today.
I can clarify that for you. Councillor Monkoff-Swain suggested this idea earlier this year to have capital projects identified on September 13th, give administration enough time between September 13th and budget debate later this year to have those projects brought back as part of budget. Your motion is ahead of that procedure. However, it'll still be addressed, but we're going to address it for you on September 13th instead of delaying it until sometime in October as part of the budget process. So we're kind of going outside the box a bit, which is fine. Administration feels they have the capacity to do your report for September 13th instead of you saying on September 13th, I want this report as part of budget. Okay.
Thank you.
So are you prepared to amend your motion?
Yes, sir. I move that by the September 13th, 2022 council meeting, administration prepare a report on the feasibility of constructing an RV Sani Station in Beaumont and include potential costs, funding available, potential locations, and any other relevant information.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Council, please vote accordingly. And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Councillor Tessier. Appreciate the flexibility with your notice of motion. Next on our agenda is 7C, Councillor Tessier, motion following notice, paved walkway for West Recreation Site. In a moment, Councillor Tessier, your motion will be up on the screen. I'll ask you to move your motion and then speak to it.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that prior to the September 13th, 2022 council meeting, administration provide a report on the cost of paving the portion of the road to the West Recreation Site, as well as paving the pathways to the site.
Thank you, Councillor. Would you please speak to your motion?
Thank you, Mayor. This is something I was unaware that was not in the budget cycle when we built the West Rec site. It's something that we're gonna have to do eventually. So we should find out what that cost looks like, what the timelines are like. If anyone's been out there and played any baseball or walking your dog, if the wind's the wrong way, you're just getting hammered by dust. It might sound like a beaten drum, but again, we're a city of 22,000 people. I don't think we should be taking our vehicles down a gravel road to reach a recreation site that we've built. And there's going to be future growth going that way anyway. So the quicker we do this, the more enjoyment we get out of that area. I'll leave it at that, Mayor. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate your comments. And I have heard the same concerns you're raising, and many of us have. And I agree, when we did do the capital project for West Recreation Site, which includes the 5 Diamonds and the dog park, we did not include the cost of paving the road as part of the timing. Now, to be fair, I will suggest that with the Elon subdivision being built directly north of the road that borders the north part of our project, there are trucks going through into the subdivision. So there was concern saying delaying the paving until some construction was beginning rather than do a, I shouldn't say half-ass, but do a not a great job on the road, only have it do it later the second time. That was part of the discussion at the time we passed the project, but your comments are not on false ears. So same question would be to you to have the report on September 13th, same logic as your previous notice of motion. And the same report will come back to you as Councillor, Mr. Blanco said to us. So before I actually ask that question, I see a question from Councillor Van Nukers. I'll Steve answer a question first, and we'll come back to you. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. I like the direction that this motion is going. The one piece of information, though, that I think we need to improve a little bit is the as well as paving the pathways to the site. Currently, there are no pathways to the site. So I think it would be more prudent to, as well as constructing and paving pathways to the site, I think is what we would need to do there, because we don't own the land there. So there would be a land acquisition, and then there would be build a trail before you can pave it. So I think construction and paving is probably the more prudent thing to do there.
Councillor Tessier, would you agree to a slight change to your motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So
as well as constructing and paving the pathways to the site.
Ms. Winter, you have a comment from administration on this?
I do. Thank you, Mayor, through to Councillor Van Nukirk and Councillor Tessier. That would be amending motion to the mains. Just 1 moment.
Just 1 second, Council, please. We'll get a clarification on procedure. Ms. Boudier?
Mr. Mayor, we're sorry, we're just trying to get a little bit of clarity if we're talking about creating new pathways or creating new pathways.
Yeah, if I could, Mayor. Yeah,
Yes,
so
please.
currently the exists. So in order to pave a pathway, as is suggested in this wording, we would actually have to create a pathway before we can pave it. That's the clarity I was hoping to put into this costing.
That would be clarifying the motion, so we could treat that as a friendly.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you.
So if we could, if I may, Councillor Tessier, as well as constructing and paving the pathways to the site. Would you concur with that?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Van Newkirk. And yeah, and I think there's like a safety aspect to it right now, because if anyone's gone out there lately to us, like people are gonna walk on there no matter what. So there's already, it's a thin shoulder. So even if we construct it and get a granular path in there during the winter, so I understand exactly what you're saying. So thank you for the amendment, and that's
Okay.
it for me.
One last question, if I may, Councillor Tessier. So similar to the previous motion, to have this brought to us at the September 13th meeting, the same logic as was discussed with your previous motion. Would you be comfortable with the at the September 13th meeting, or you want to leave it as is to be before September 13th, which mean it have to be in July?
So does pathways fall under capital budget, sir?
Mr. DeBlanco?
Yes, so through the mayor to Councillor Tessier, yes, this would be very similar to the prior motion in that this would be a capital project to be included in that September 13th report as well.
That works in.
You're comfortable?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. If we could then, Ms. Winter, please.
Mayor, after Councillor Tessier makes his comments, we do have Mr. Lewicki who would like to speak to this as well from
I
administration.
can't hear you, sorry. Aaron, Ms. Lewicki? Oh, sure.
Would
Okay.
like to also speak to this after Councillor Tessier speaks.
Okay. So we'll just make the change to at the September 13th meeting.
I move that by the September 13th, or I move that at the September 13th, 2022 council meeting, administration provide a report on the cost of paving the portion of the road to the west recreation site, as well as constructing and paving the pathways to the site.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Councillor Tessier. Before I call for the vote, Ms. Winter, I couldn't hear you very well. Could you clarify? Are we supposed to vote first and Mr. Lewicki would like to speak, or wants to speak before we vote from administration? Please.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Mr. Lewicki would like to speak prior to council voting.
Okay. Ms. Lewicki, you would have the floor at this point, please.
Yeah, I just wanted, can everybody hear me? I just wanted to mention that constructing and paving
He'll
pathways
join
to
us by
this.
Zoom in a moment. He's probably already on the line. No problem.
I think there's a big delay in my signal here. I'm not sure if everybody can hear me or not. Can anybody hear me? I don't think I'm coming through here. Delay in my signal here. I'm not sure if everybody can hear me or not.
Can you hear me now?
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
I don't think I'm coming through here. Delay in my signal here. I'm not sure if everybody can hear me or not.
Can you hear me now?
Can anybody hear me?
Yes. That's funny how the audio's.
I don't think I'm coming through here. Delay in my signal here. I'm not sure if everybody can hear me or not.
Can you hear me now? Ms. Winter.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Lewicki said just to go ahead with the vote.
Just to proceed? Okay, we can do that. Council, are there any questions on the amended notice of motion from Councillor Tessier? Have it up on the screen one more time, please. Seeing no questions, Council, I'll ask you to vote accordingly. And that motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Administration, Mr. Blanco, Ms. Mitchell, for your assistance on that procedure. We are now at 6:44. We have a hard stop at 6:45 for a closed session. So at the closed session, the room must be cleared and will be approximately 45 minutes to an hour. If you wish as a gallery to come back at that time and resume the meeting, you're welcome to come back, but we'll simply open the door when the meeting is over. So we expect to be at least 45 minutes to at least at most an hour in our closed session. So at this point, I will close this meeting and we'll reset the room with our guests, please leaving the office. Thank you all for coming, but you're welcome to come back. We're accommodating our guests' schedule. So